Well, good morning and welcome to this Zoom Q&A session as part of the Sustainable Business Series. This is all about week 3, which focuses on reducing carbon emissions in sectors such as transport and energy. I'm Raj Kandola, Head of Policy and Strategic Relationships at the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's session. Now, today, I'm joined by David Harris, who's Transport Strategy and Place Manager at Transport West Midlands. As we know, Transport West Midlands is the public body responsible for coordinating transport services in the West Midlands Metropolitan County in England as part of the West Midlands Combined Authority. David, great to have you on board today.
Hi, Raj. Thanks for having us.
So, first of all, could you just tell us a bit more about the history of Transport West Midlands, what it's responsible for, how it came about, and its objectives kind of moving forward when it comes to net zero?
So, Transport for West Midlands is the transport arm or brand of the West Midlands Combined Authority. And the Combined Authority was set up about 5 years ago to sort of support local authorities. So we're not a council, but we work for and behalf of the local authorities in the West Midlands to help make the case for powers and investment to sort of support the region and help it thrive. And I think many people will be aware that we have a mayor, Andy Street. He's essentially chairman of the West Midlands Combined Authority Board. But the board is made up of the leaders of the West Midlands councils, which obviously includes Birmingham, Solihull, Coventry, and those in the Black Country, but also sort of non-constituent members from the wider West Midlands region, so some of the Shire counties, districts and boroughs, but also the local enterprise partnerships as well. And in terms of Transport for West Midlands, we're what's called the Local Transport Authority for what's called constituent members. So that's the 7 metropolitan councils within the West Midlands. And we have a number of key responsibilities, and that includes producing the statutory local transport plan, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment. We help coordinate public transport services and assets across the region, but we also have a role in sort of coordinating and working with local authorities in managing what we call the key route network, which comprises some of our busiest roads across the West Midlands, and they carry around, I think, 70% of all traffic. And some people may have heard about the Regional Traffic Coordination Centre, and that helps us sort of manage the transport system across the West Midlands, and that's done out of our offices here at Summer Lane. So we do quite a lot. We help to invest and improve the regional transport system and sort of work towards a network which is integrated and safe and secure. And as I come on to the LTP and the investments that the Combined Authority and Transport for West Midlands makes help to achieve a range of outcomes, including supporting the West Midlands economy, but as well we seek to also reduce the negative environmental and social impacts of transport.
That's really interesting, and obviously a very wide-ranging remit that your organisation has. I mean, from a sustainability point of view, what are the core objectives, would you say, that Transport West Midlands has over the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, I think in terms of our sort of short term, it's really kind of looking at how we sorry, can we stop it there? Sorry, you caught me out because I've got a script here which responds particularly to the questions you asked, and then I'm like I'm trying to on the hoof think, okay, how do I sorry.
Should we just start again?
Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
I've kind of got a script
sorry.
to help me answer that, and then you're kind of going off piste. And
no, sorry. I think there's a mixed message there. I think
sorry.
No, we can do it. We've done it previously where we have those kind of example questions and we use them to kind of go off on a different tangent. But I'm happy, more than happy to stick to those. Let's start again. And so I'll say that we're starting from, where are we now? How many minutes are we in? Yeah, okay, that's fine. So we can start from a bit further in.
It's just to gather my thoughts, because like stuff like that, I kind of can reel off loads of stuff, but it's just making sure I'm saying the right things, really.
Yeah. So looking at the script, then we've got so David to introduce himself and the organisation more. So shall I just say at that point? So firstly, David, can you tell us a bit about your role and what is Transport West Midlands?
Yeah.
That's the first question, and then I'll say, okay, that's really interesting. So could you then I'll say, can you tell us a bit more about your commitment to decarbonisation and net zero? Yeah, that's great. And then the next question again, are you happy with what role will TfWM play in tackling?
Yeah, that's fine. I just think if you want to ask about the next 6 to 12 months, I mean, I cover that off because I think there is a number kind of way I've approached this and thinking about the answers to the question.
Yeah.
I think there's sort of layers of it's a strategic aspect of
Yeah.
what we're trying to do, things like the LTP. But I guess thinking about it, it was just trying to structure my thoughts because I cover some of this stuff. Some of the biggest challenges for us in the next 6 to 12 months are things like securing the bus network.
Yeah, of course.
And things like that, which I kind of then sort of drilled down into.
Yeah.
And it was just when you threw me there because I was thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna have to kind of like.
No, it's okay. So first question, then I'll say, David, nice to meet you. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, what you do at Transport West Midlands and what the organisation does? Then I'll say, you'll answer that. Then I'll say, can you tell us a bit more about TfWM's commitment to decarbonisation and net zero?
Yeah.
Then I'll say, okay, so if I say in the long term, what role will in tackling the climate emergency? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then we can drill down into sort of some of the short-term stuff.
Yeah.
I think if I didn't have a script and I was trying to work out sort of a plan, I could go more off piece, but you threw me there. Sorry.
And then that's okay. And then finally, then what I'll say is, what role can Transport West Midlands play in supporting businesses?
Which again, I've kind of mapped out how I'm going to respond to that question.
Okay. And then then you answer that, and then we'll wrap up. No, that's absolutely fine.
Sorry to be a pain in the bum.
No.
This is the way my brain works, I'm afraid.
No, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's the first time we've done this one together, so it's absolutely fine. So I'll make a start again. I'll count myself in, and we'll go from here. Right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Zoom Q&A, which is part of the Sustainable Business Series. This is for week 3, which focuses on decarbonising key sectors such as energy and transport. I'm Raj Kandola, Head of Policy and Strategic Relationships at the Chamber. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Now, today, I'm joined by David Harris, who works at Transport for West Midlands as a Transport Strategy and Place Manager. So firstly, David, thanks very much for joining us today, but could you tell us a bit more about your role at TfWM and what the organisation is responsible for?
Sure. Hi, Raj. Thanks for having us. So essentially, Transport for West Midlands is the transport arm or brand of the West Midlands Combined Authority. And the West Midlands Combined Authority is not a council, but it is a partnership of local authorities. And we work for and behalf of those local authorities to make the case for powers and investments to support the region and to help it thrive. And many people will be aware that we have a mayor, who's Andy Street, and he's chairman of what's called the WMCA, West Midlands Combined Authority Board. And that board is made up of the leaders of the West Midlands councils, as well as some of the non-constituent council members from the wider region, including the Shire counties, districts and boroughs, and also includes representatives from the local enterprise partnerships. So Transport for West Midlands and the West Midlands Combined Authority are what's known as the local transport authority. So this has a legal status, and we perform that duty on behalf of the 7 constituent metropolitan councils. And we have a duty to do a number of things. And one of the key things we have to do is produce the statutory local transport plan for the West Midlands, which is a key document, which I'll come on to in due course as we go through the session. But we also have a role in coordinating public transport services and assets across the region. And we help to manage the key route network, which comprises some of the busiest roads across our region, and it carries around 70% of all traffic. And we also operate and run the Regional Traffic Coordination Centre, which helps us manage the transport system across the region. So through our role, we sort of seek to invest and improve this transport system. And our aim really is to sort of get towards an integrated system that's safe and secure. And through the LTP, the Local Transport Plan, and the investments that the Combined Authority and Transport for West Midlands make, we aim to achieve a range of outcomes, which obviously includes supporting economic growth in the region, but we also seek to sort of reduce the negative environmental and social impacts of transport.
No, that's great. So just building on that last point then, so could you tell me a bit more about TfWM's commitment to decarbonisation and net zero?
Sure. So in 2019, the Combined Authority declared a climate emergency and has since committed to being a zero carbon region by 2041. And this is actually quite ambitious because it's ahead of the UK government's legal target of achieving net zero by 2050. So it's worth sort of understanding transport is one of the biggest emitters of carbon, with around 25% of all domestic emissions. So it's a key area for us to focus. And in our new local transport plan, we're trying to set out how we're going to create the transport network, which helps us provide a cleaner, more efficient alternatives for many journeys that people need to make.
Brilliant. So from your perspective then, thinking about just really kind of drilling into, if you can, TfWM's specific role they're playing tackling the climate emergency. Could you go into a bit more detail around that?
Sure. So as I spoke about, we have a statutory duty to develop the local transport plan for the region, and this sets out policies to promote safe, integrated, efficient and economic transport to, from and within the area. And then obviously we have to develop plans to implement those policies. And it's a key document that's considered in decisions that if we make requests for funding to government, or in through planning decisions made by local authorities, it has to be taken into account. So it's quite critical for us to get right. And I think it's also worth sort of saying that with the scale of commitments around decarbonisation, government are currently updating their guidance for local authorities around local transport plans, and we're going to have to be absolutely clear about how we are demonstrating quantifiable reductions in carbon, and that's going to be something that then government are probably likely to use in terms of how much funding the region gets for transport going forward. So carbon's really important, and it's really key for us to get right. And I think it's worth saying that whilst TfWM combined authorities are accountable and responsible for producing and reviewing that LTP, we obviously have to do it in partnership with the local authorities because they have transport powers that we don't, but also other stakeholders, including transport operators, network operators, but also stakeholders like yourself and the businesses that you represent, because the only way we get to sort of good policy and good outcomes is through that engagement with the public and stakeholders. I think it's also important just to say that whilst decarbonisation is absolutely critical, it's at the heart of what our new LTP is going to try to do, it's not the only outcome we need to achieve. But simply having a narrow focus on decarbonisation may not help us to effectively achieve all those other things that the combined authority and our local authorities want to do. So things like achieving inclusive economic growth, dealing with health inequalities and so on. So in our new LTP, we talk about 5 motives for change, which does include decarbonisation, but also how we will set about sustaining the economic success of the region and improving health outcomes as well. And in the LTP, we sort of set out that to achieve these outcomes, we need to do 3 things, and that's improve accessibility. So being able to connect people to jobs and opportunities, to give them the sort of the grounding and opportunity that they need to thrive, ideally by non-car modes, because actually that's key to sort of a lot of the decarbonisation agenda. We also need to shift people to electric vehicles. So electrification or other cleaner fuels are not the panacea, but they're an important part of what we need to do. So we need to support that. And finally, we need to sort of reduce overall levels of traffic. Because actually, if we've got quieter, safer streets, not only do we hopefully have less carbon emissions, we have better air quality, we have safer roads where people feel they can walk and cycle, but also in terms of business, we have more efficient and reliable journeys that connect people to places. So those are 3 things that we're looking to do. I think it's fair to say that at the heart of that then is the concept of behaviour change, because ultimately only by people changing some of their behaviours, their trouble behaviours, will we achieve some of these things. So I think through the LTP, we need to continue to discuss how we improve the alternatives to a range of journeys, and particularly to the car. And we're going to keep on investing and improving the public transport system and make walking and cycling easier and safer. But I think there's a need just to understand that to do this, going forward, we may have to start to increasingly consider some of those less popular measures as well. And that's not just pricing. which is often the sort of go-to, but it's things like road space allocation, how we use some of our highway space to make some of those other modes, such as walking, cycling or public transport, more attractive, give them more reliable journeys and so on. So we often talk about carrot and stick. And I think we have to be honest that the level of behaviour change that we need to see going forward simply won't be achieved through so-called carrots, and we're going to have to apply some of those sticks. But obviously there's challenges within that. There's a need to take people with us, take our stakeholders with us, build consensus around kind of the things that we need to do and the way we need to go about it, and also make sure that the politicians feel comfortable with those courses of action.
I mean, just building on some of the points that you raised in your last answer there. I mean, finally, could you go into a bit more detail, you think, the long-term role that Transport for West Midlands can play in supporting businesses who are embarking on their own net zero journey right now?
Yeah, sure. I think as we continue to develop and implement policy and strategy, we want to keep talking and engaging with businesses. So some of the issues that I raised there are going to raise issues, raise challenges for the way that we currently, might go about doing stuff, be that, along a corridor in a certain place, where businesses operate. We're going to have to understand what sort of impact some of these changes might have, and also engage to understand how best can we address some of those concerns. What are the best kind of policies and measures that can help businesses adapt in the best way? And some of those may not be things that directly Transport for West Midlands or the Combined Authority can actually do, but it's about us helping to have a voice for business in those engagements with government as we go through the process, to make sure that we're really clear about the things that the West Midlands needs to help us transition in a sort of fair and inclusive way. I think there's also just a point to be made that we're already doing a lot to try and help people and businesses make more sustainable journeys through things like the Regional Traffic Control Coordination Centre I mentioned, and the work we do to try and give information about how well the network's operating, help businesses and people plan their journeys effectively, but also sort of support to help people access employment through various travel savings, funding for cycling work, as well as support for new starters. So those sorts of things, as well as other incentives that we might be able to offer. So for example, one of the big things we're trying to find our way through at the moment is the future of our bus network post-pandemic. There's some big challenges there, but we've recently sort of been awarded money through our bus service improvement plan to help us kind of stabilise and build back the West Midlands bus network. And through that, there's a variety of things that we want to do, which includes getting rid of a lot of the bus tickets. We've currently got 3,000 different varieties of bus tickets across the West Midlands. We're trying to put that down to 6 to make those options simpler and cheaper for people. And we're also looking at new sort of options, so things like demand responsive transport to provide new options to connect people to opportunities. And we're also looking at, obviously, they've got e-scooter trials and micro-mobility trials across the region. And we think, potentially going forward, that's going to be a key area of interest for us to sort of support and help provide access to opportunities and education for people in a way that perhaps we've not done before.
That's really fascinating. I think one thing that really stood out for me there is that collaborative approach can be absolutely key if we're going to achieve these region-wide objectives. So, David, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really, really helpful. And again, if people would like to find out more information about the work of TfWM, we can obviously share relevant links as part of this Zoom Q&A and the article that goes out to support it. So thanks very much to David for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today. Now, just a reminder from our perspective that this Zoom Q&A session is part of the wider Sustainable Business Series. As you know, the Sustainable Business Series endeavours to tackle climate change by supporting business decarbonisation to meet both national net zero targets and regional targets, but also build a resilient low carbon economy. Throughout the month of October and into November, we'll be hosting a series of webinars, Zoom Q&A sessions such as this, and a summit, which is taking place on the 2nd of November. Various topics we'll cover throughout this whole month, whether it's reducing energy usage, thinking about climate risk and adaptation, decarbonising in key sectors such as transport and energy, but also thinking about decarbonising in your own business, but also the end-to-end product life cycle. So lots of activity that we'll be undertaking throughout October. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Aston University, University of Birmingham, Shakespeare Martineau, for their ongoing support. And because of them, all of these events are free to attend. So please do share this information. And if you'd like to come along and find out anything else about any of the events, please do visit our website. Many thanks.